All right, we're recording now. So, hi, Leta. I just want to welcome you. This is Leta Guzman. She is the owner and founder of Stress Free Private Practice Management. And I'm glad that you're here today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I want to talk to you a little bit about virtual assistants because that is one of the questions I get the most from other therapists that I coach. They need to do less of the stuff they don't enjoy so much and have more space for the other. But it's kind of intimidating because most of us are not from the corporate world where we're used to having assistants or whatever. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's like?
Yeah, sure. So that's a really great question. And I feel like oftentimes until someone gets a virtual assistant for their practice, they don't really realize all the ways they can use a virtual assistant. So pretty much the virtual assistants services that we offer are a variety of services. So we do scheduling and answering calls. That's one division. We process billing, help with claims and credentialing. And then we also provide marketing services as well too. And oftentimes, these are always tasks that a therapist or someone that has a private practice just really doesn't necessarily need to be doing themselves because those are all skills that you really have to learn. And to learn all of that and manage it can be overwhelming when it comes to also running your practice and, having those therapy sessions that really need you as the practice owner to be involved in that. So we try to make sure that we can help on all different areas and that we can provide services on all of those different areas so that you can really focus as a practice owner on what matters most within the practice. And that's really providing that mental health care to the clients.
Absolutely. And one of the things I tell people is in our industry, the person who answers the phone gets the booking for the most part. And so
Yes,
having someone answer the phone because we're not available at least 50 minutes most hours of the day. Um,
exactly.
we're it's actually smart investment money because we're paying someone to make us more money. you know, we
Exactly.
we pay for
Yes.
the service, but it yields us more in the long run. Um,
Yes.
so speak a little bit to that I guess intimidation of starting to pay someone to do something you technically could do for yourself, answer the phone or, return
Yeah.
calls. What does that look like if someone hires you?
Yeah, definitely. So one of my clients once said that it's an investment well worth spent because you can obviously see the return from it. Sure, you're paying someone for doing something that you could probably do, like answering calls and scheduling, but it makes a difference when you have someone that's right there to answer the phone. And it also makes a difference when you have someone that's compassionate and is passionate about the mental health field and knows what to say and knows how to lead a client in the right direction. I always say personally, if I call to schedule an appointment for my children or for myself or whatever the case may be, if I get a vibe on the phone like I'm a bother to someone, I hang up and I call someone else because if I'm a bother to you over the phone, I can only imagine what it's going to be like in person. So that's really something that I kind of tell private practice owners is having someone on the phone is crucial because people want to be able to call to get someone on the phone and to be able to form that connection and building that relationship before they even step in the door is really important. And when you think about it and you realize, oh wow, I remember when I wasn't answering phones, I didn't really have as much volume in clientele versus when I hired someone to do it, I may be paying for it, but when they answer that one call and they schedule that first session, as long as the practice is doing what it's supposed to be doing with their sessions, they're going to keep reoccurring those clients. And it's easier and more cost effective to keep a client than to market to get a new client. So paying for those services is definitely helping make sure that that happens and it pays off at the end of the day.
I could not agree more. I have found that true in my practice for sure. And I feel like for me personally, like even above just the money, the additional money that comes in for the practice, it gives me quality of life back because at the end of the day, we're as therapists, we're in a relational business. Well, technically, I believe everyone's in a relational business, but um, we are pouring out a lot throughout the day, and at the end of the day, sometimes the last thing I want to do is return a phone call, and I know it's the right
Yes.
thing to do, and so every therapist has heard, and you've probably heard from people that have called in, like how many people call around and never get a call back.
Yes, exactly. Even if you don't pick up the phone the first time around, because, you might be on the phone, or if it's a practice owner, they might be in session, at least giving them that call back and giving them the information that they need really makes a difference. And sometimes when I answer the phone, they're like, oh, is this a real person? And I'm like, yes, it is. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I've already called 5 other places and no one answered. And I'm like, well, you're lucky. I'm here for you. So it makes a difference, definitely.
I could not agree more. What would you say are some of the number one questions that you get when people are calling to inquire as to whether or not they want to hire a virtual assistant?
Yeah, so a lot of the questions that I get is the certifications and background checks. Like, do you background check the employees that are going to be helping with, the day-to-day tasks and scheduling and viewing client info? And that's one thing that we definitely provide is background checks and HIPAA compliance. So we do HIPAA training as well too. And sometimes people will also ask, like, well, do you know how to handle a situation if someone calls and they're distressed, or they're saying things that makes you think that they may have suicidal thoughts? So, I train for a very long period of time when it comes to answering phones, because it can be intimidating sometimes, especially if you're not a therapist yourself. You have to kind of like pull out those little key points of, okay, they're saying this, so it could mean this, and let me ask some more questions to kind of find out more. So that's one of the questions people ask too, is do they have experience speaking with people within the mental health field that are reaching out, that are struggling? And that's something that's very important to me and my business. So I make sure that we strive on that. Other questions are, mainly like the experience with the EHR platforms. That's a big one. And most of the common EHR platforms we have experience in, and also they all kind of go together. Once you know one, you can figure out the rest. And I would say too, a lot of times clients will ask about marketing. How can I market my practice? What's your method of marketing? What are the results, and so on and so forth. So those are probably the main questions that people ask.
Wonderful. So, before we leave the virtual assistant realm, one more question. I know that my virtual assistant, a primary thing she does is sell me. She sells me and she sells my team to the people on the other end of the phone. Not in any inauthentic way, but we've built enough of a relationship that she knows our personality. So when, like you said, when you're on the phone, you can start to get a feel for, is this going to be a good fit? Do I need to run this past the therapist for? Is this an automatic booking based on what they're saying? So does your team, is one person assigned, or is it a team that's assigned to answer? And then how do they get to know the therapist so that they can essentially be their champion and cheerleader on the phone?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and so important too. So we typically only have one virtual assistant assigned to each client based off of the department. So we have one virtual assistant for marketing, one for billing, and then one for calls and scheduling and admin type of tasks. So typically it's only one person answering the calls. Now, I step in from time to time when we do this really crazy thing called self-care and they need to go on vacation, but we still need the phones answered. But we make sure that we ask questions to the clients so that we can figure out who the best match is. Some of the main questions are like, what is the reason you're seeking therapy? And they tend to go into detail of what they're struggling with. And then we match it back to what therapist specializes in what they're struggling with. Or sometimes, actually, oftentimes, a lot of people call in now saying, do you have someone that specializes in CBT therapy? Or I'm looking for a mindful based approach. And it's really funny because we never really had people approach us like that before. Honestly, like over the past couple of years, I almost feel like people are educating themselves within mental health, which is like super exciting because that's kind of what we would do, is educate them a little bit when they would kind of tell us what they were going through. And, what sounds like a mindfulness based approach would be great for you. And then we find a therapist that kind of matches it. And sometimes it's really a matter of when they need therapy. Do you need it virtually? Do you need it in person? What time frames? And what we have available for the therapist as well too. I will tell people sometimes, hey, I think a therapist is really great for you that we have with us, but she doesn't have any openings yet. Would you be comfortable waiting until she has some? Or would you like to go a different route? And I can give you a couple of different options. So sometimes too, it's best to leave it to the client to pick based off of who you've selected, not everybody. You don't want them scrolling on the website at, 15 different therapists trying to make a decision, but hey, these two look like a great option for you. Why don't you check them out and see what you think of them? Or sometimes you just know there's that one therapist that is going to be perfect for them based off of their personality and the therapist's personality. And we try to take the time to get to know each therapist, read their bio, understand them. Sometimes it's not a whole lot of interaction, but when it can be some interaction going on back and forth, we like to make it that way.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to answer those questions, because those are a lot of the same questions I get when people ask, and I just think it helps people take the leap a little easier whenever we have information instead of worries. It decreases our anxiety and it makes it easier to take the next step. So thank you so much.
Yes, exactly. No problem.